My kid was choked in class. The teacher tried a treat, and I pushed the principal to act fast. On my youngest daughter's 8th birthday, I found out she'd been choked at school. She asked her nanny to tell me because she was too upset to say it herself. When they walked in for dinner at my side of the family's house, her eyes were red, and she held her throat. It was her birthday. The table was set with balloons and a cake that suddenly felt wrong. She kept touching her neck like she needed to make sure it was still there. When I asked if she had a wish, she nodded and whispered that she wanted school to feel safe again. She said a boy grabbed her neck on the playground and squeezed. She told me, "I couldn't breathe, Dad." She said he also yanked her arm again and again until it hurt. She's not a hitter or a yeller. She's the kid who lines up on the painted dots and reminds friends to wear jackets. Hearing her say, "He squeezed," in that small voice turned my stomach. The handprint wasn't obvious, but the fear was, and the pain was plain. Another classmate tried to tell the teacher while it was happening, but the teacher didn't hear. After my girl pulled away, she told the teacher herself. The teacher talked to both kids, wrote him up, and promised my daughter a special treat the next day. No one called me. No nurse saw her. Instead, my kid came home with a story about a surprise treat on her birthday. It felt like hush money. I checked her neck and arm. She flinched when I pressed on one spot under her jaw, and her forearm was tender. When I took photos, I set a coin for scale and emailed them to me for timestamp. I wrote the times on a sticky note and kept the prints as evidence. Okay, I took photos of the marks and wrote down the times while it was fresh. I asked the nanny to repeat what she saw at pickup, and I kept my questions simple so I didn't lead my daughter. Then I pulled up the district handbook and read the bullying section 3 times. It says parents must be told right away, and that a nurse exam is required after any violent incident. I printed that page. I wrote a short letter that laid out the facts, named the date and time, and asked for an investigation, training, and written updates. I signed it and made 2 copies. The next afternoon I drove to the school unannounced. I walked straight to the office with the letters. The front desk asked if I had an appointment. I said my daughter was choked yesterday and I was not called. The room went quiet except for the copier. The principal came out with the assistant principal and took me to a small room. She had no idea any of this had happened. I slid the letters across the table. I told her what my daughter said word for word and showed the photos on my phone. The principal read, frowned, and admitted policy wasn't followed. She said I should have been called, and my girl should have seen the nurse. She said she would start an investigation right away and talk to the boy, my daughter, the teacher, and any witnesses. I also told her that a second boy had been pushing and kicking kids at recess, including my daughter. She wrote down his name. She said she would meet with all recess staff about supervision and remind them they are there to watch children, not chat. I asked for a timeline. She said I would get a response by Wednesday with what they did, within what the law allows. I asked her to give the teacher extra training on reporting and to review duty schedules so there weren't blind spots. She agreed. At 5 p.m. that day, the teacher finally called me. She apologized for not calling when it happened. She said, "I just didn't know how to tell you." I told her she should have told me right away and sent my daughter to the nurse. Because she didn't, I had to show up myself. I didn't raise my voice. I kept it short. I said I expected consequences for everyone who failed to follow policy and that anything for my child would be in writing. She said she had written the boy up and thought she had called his parents. I told her to stop guessing and confirm. The next day, the principal met with my daughter, the boy who choked her, and the other boy from recess. My daughter told her story again. Both boys admitted what they did. Around 5:30 p.m., the principal called me and said actions had been taken per policy. She couldn't give me the exact discipline because of privacy rules, but my daughter shares a class with the boy, and he was checked out before lunch right after meeting with the office. That told me he was suspended. The principal said both sets of parents had been contacted. She said every teacher had been pulled into a quick training on reporting, calling parents, and keeping eyes on kids during recess. She said they went over who stands where and how to intervene fast, and that extra checks were added so incidents wouldn't slip by again. I told her I expected a written report by Wednesday. She said I would have it. Now the teacher is saying I'm making a scene by pushing this. Was I wrong?